ABC Radio 2.
But right now, at 27.5 minutes to 11, it's time to join Richard and Karen, the Carpenters, with Ray Moore in an exclusive interview recorded in Los Angeles last year.
Karen and Richard sitting facing me at the moment. You've had a marvellous run of super songs over the last 10 or 15 years. Richard, I'm going to ask you first, what do you look for in a Carpenter song? What is the quality of a Carpenter song? Could you define it?
Well, it has to have something right off the bat in the melody that grabs me, because I go from with gut reaction if it gives me chills, that type of a thing. So it's a combination of that and a lyric that I'm happy with, and of course something that fits Karen's style and range.
Yeah, could you define your style and range, Karen? You have a super voice.
Well, oh, thank you very much. I've been asked to describe it before. I really don't have a commonplace answer. It's just the way that I feel, and I've never really copied anybody or styled myself after anybody. See, the way my voice showed up was kind of an accident in the first place. I didn't know that I could sing or do anything until I was about 16 years old.
Yeah, well, tell us how the accident happened.
Well, Richard was musical practically from birth. One. He waited. He was very lackadaisical. And through my whole life, I'm 3 years younger than Richard, and from the time that Richard was 2, he was always interested in listening, and he just took an enormous interest. Even though he couldn't read labels, he could tell which record was which by feeling the grooves on the edge. It's amazing. And throughout his whole life, as he was growing up, he really displayed an enormous interest and began showing that he had a gift in a lot of areas. He started to play the piano, and at about the age of 11 or 12, he started studying seriously and took to it quite quickly. Myself, I did everything that Richard did. If he listened to music, I listened to music. And it was unconscious, but because I idolized him so much and we were so close, even though we were 3 years apart, I did everything he did. Thusly, to this day, every record that we've ever listened to is embedded in my mind. And we listened to a lot of different types of music because my father had quite a varied collection. And from things like Spike Jones, Red Nichols, the classics.
Because he was a musician as well, your father, wasn't he?
No, both my dad, more so my dad and my mom, are appreciators, I would say. Is that the best way to put it? Is that the...
Yeah,
rather
music
than,
lovers.
Yeah.
Yeah, so your childhood at home in New England, you were brought up.
Yes.
There was a lot of music in the home.
Yes.
Yes. And
but to answer the question, what happened was that...
I was building up, you know.
I've been interested in voice practically all my life, and I'd like to hear what different people could do, and Mom has quite a nice voice, and there came a time when I started writing tunes and really getting into with groups and things like that I was interested in how Karen would sound. This was right around the time at first, I think you were around 15 or something like that, and we sang, I remember I asked her to sing The End of the World, the Skeeter Davis hit, and she had this tiny little voice. It was in tune and pleasant, but really not outstanding by any stretch. But we'd fool around with it from time to time, and then I came up with this tune once we'd moved to California. It was like a year later, and I wrote it in G and just laid it out for Karen to sing in G, and all of a sudden this voice came out that was the one we hear on record, singing the leads.
I was saving it.
And it just was there. So she has like two distinct voices. And the big one, the one we're all familiar with, it was a little untrained sounding right at first. But
it sounded country.
It was no
yes,
vibrato and very straight.
yeah.
And after like 6 months or so, the vibrato was there, and it was just maturing very rapidly.
Yeah.
I was building up to that.
What was your early ambition then, Karen? I mean, did
Baseball.
you... Baseball?
Very into baseball. While Richard was listening the whole time, he never left us. You know, we had a basement, and all I did was listen to music. And I was out playing baseball and football and playing with my machine gun, and very tomboyish. Quite a character, I hear. And I remember that I wanted to be a commercial artist or a nurse or an airline stewardess. And one, I can't stand the sight of blood. Two, if I fly one more mile. And I still like art, but what I started to say is that the whole thing of me getting into music was different than the way Richard got into it. He knew he was always going to be in.
Yeah.
It didn't matter in what area. If he stopped what he was doing today, he could go into 10 other areas.
You seem to be fans of each other.
Oh, yeah, I've always been a fan of Karen, definitely.
And well, that's from childhood, you know.
Yeah. Because you were trained as a classical drummer, Karen, weren't you?
Well, see, when I went to high school, I had no idea that I could do a blasted thing. Seriously, I just kind of hung around and watched him be good, you know. And when I went to high school, after we moved out to California, I didn't want to go into gym, and I wanted also to get out of geometry, because I stunk at it. Thusly, I ended up in marching band and choir, which is very ironic, because that's how I got started. Not knowing that I could do anything, I started realizing that the choir director wasn't any good, and the choir sang out of tune. And when I got into marching band, I immediately fell in love with the drums. And I was the first female drummer. The band director thought I was crazy. But luckily, I took to them right away. And I played for a year and a half before I studied.
Really?
Yeah. And
Do you
then
still play now? Do you keep your hand in on the drums?
Yeah. We haven't been on stage in a little while, but I play on stage. And I used to play the entire show until we realized that somebody had to front the group, and they were all looking at me. So we had to get another drummer. But now we have a 9-minute drum extravaganza between myself and our drummer, Cubby O'Brien.
Coming down to the nitty-gritty, Richard, if I could turn to you. When you get in the studio to record a new album, do you work with a producer? I mean, you've written many of the songs for the Carpenters, from John Bettis and yourself. I mean, are you the producer? Is the producer come in, or what happens?
Oh, no, I take care of the producing.
The total sound, the
total
whole
thing.
concept?
Yeah.
One thing that's happened over the years is, for some reason, people don't look at credits. And they seem, because they hear me in the foreground, they think that that it's my record. And I do the lead singing, but Richard does all the picking of the material. He does all the arranging, all the orchestrating. He conducts it, he produces it, we play it, we sing it, we take it into the mix room and right into the mastering room.
I see. So how long does it take you, Richard? What is the time scale from, say, your recent one, Made in America, from the original concept, and you get together with John Bettis and write the songs, and you get in the studio, record it? How long is it from that original concept, from when I can go to a shop in England and buy it?
We can't use the last album because that one we over-recorded that one. But a typical album where the songs are selected, written, all like that.
6 months.
Oh, yeah, well, 4 to 6, yeah.
So it's a long time.
Oh, yeah.
This last one took a year.
Did it?
But
Well, that's because we did so much extra
Right.
stuff,
Yeah.
and then Karen got married right in the middle of it.
Yes.
And,
no, actually, it was right at the beginning of it. We hadn't been in the studio for a couple years, and
Well, I was going to ask you about that, because as far as we were concerned in England, there seemed to be tremendous run of success in the early 70s. Then something of a lull. And then Made in America has been a tremendous success all over the world. Was that lull a conscious decision while you got married? And
yeah, even before that.
Oh, yeah.
You know, it's just we were going at quite a breakneck pace. Quite a few instances, we'd finish the album and go right to the airport to go out on tour. And with TV shows, photo sessions, all the different things. There was really no time to kick back at all. And we started to tire. It shows in your music.
Yeah,
so
indeed.
we wanted to just knock off for a little bit.
And I must ask you, Karen, that we were very concerned in England a couple of years ago about your illness. All sorts of strange press reports and rather peculiar photos of you. You're obviously fully fit now. You just got over the flu as well.
Yes.
I mean, what was going on then? Because a lot of
I
the
was
Carpenters fans were
pooped.
very worried.
I was just tired, both mentally and physically exhausted from being on the road year-round, and because in 7 years we didn't have a vacation, and we kept. We were in the middle of some management changes, and it just got to a point of
Got to stop.
I just got tired out and was exhausted and lost too much weight, and I ended up in bed for 2 months.
2 months. Yeah. So it's pretty serious.
I was just... No, it wasn't. I just needed some sleep. You know, I mean, every now and then people need sleep. That's basically what it took. You know, I just needed to relax and...
It's nice to see you fully fit again, anyway. Richard, we were talking about you being classically trained, both classically trained, you on piano. You also, I gather, were playing in jazz clubs at night in the early days. Is that true? And at one point you had to fake your age to get in or something.
Oh, yeah.
all the time.
Yeah, well, that whole thing started, let me see, my first gig was in New Haven out in
Is that Patty's Pizza?
Patty's Pizza. Wasn't a jazz
Talk
club,
about a
really.
class
It was just
joint.
a dump out in the Boston Post Road. And I worked with a couple guys who were like 23 and 24, and like that I was 15 at first.
Yeah.
We had his hair slicked back, so he looked
Yeah,
a
back
lot
then
older.
the styles, you know, and all, and I just never got carded, as they put it.
Well,
And that continued, well, when we
A
moved to
while.
California, and even once the bartender, we were talking about different things, and he said, so how old are you? And I figured, well, 21 sounds suspicious, so I told him I was 22. I was 16. And, in fact, my 21st birthday,
oh,
at midnight when I turned 21, I was working a joint called the Sierra Room
Oh.
in Downey, and they brought up a big drink, and the owner, and I'd been working there for 2 years, said, so how old are you? You know, I said 21. Oh, God!
see, I used to go. I was. Let me see. If you were 16, I was 13, like 15 or 16 at the time, and I'd go watch him play. You know, and he'd play the whole time with his head down. He'd never look up. You know, because if anybody got a load of his face, it was through.
Yeah.
But when we started as a trio, we were all illegal. I was 16, Richard was 19, and Wes Jacobs, our bass player, was also 19. So the three of us were, you know, just
That
we
was-
were constantly getting thrown out of places.
Yeah,
I mean,
we had to work like weddings and
Yeah,
things,
Masonics,
dances,
yes.
but forget clubs because it was just too obvious.
Yeah.
We
And all
worked
this
the
was the
Elk
mid-60s, wasn't it?
Yeah,
This was, what,
65, 6,
Yeah.
right around in there, uh-huh.
Yeah. So the Carpenters, as a vocal team, not as a trio any longer, but I mean, it's been
Right.
around a long time.
yes.
Yeah.
And what has happened to Wes Jacobs now, the guy you were working
Wes,
with?
I just saw him
He looks the same.
a
saw
couple
the
weeks
picture
ago. Oh, he looks exactly the same.
Identical.
Yeah.
He has been with the Detroit Symphony. He's solo tuba. He was working with both bass and tuba at the time. He's
I see.
immensely talented.
But somewhere that when the Carpenters became a duo, you based the sound on the four Bs, the Beatles, Burt Bacharach, the Bee Gees, and the Beach Boys. I mean, is that true?
Well, there are some influences from a couple. Bacharach, for sure. Not the vocal thing, but just the way I arrange and like that. He had a big influence on a lot of people, really.
Yeah.
And the Beach Boys, of course, where our vocal sound is different than theirs. It's still very West Coast and a vocal sound that really drove me towards getting into that area.
Yeah. And is it true that some of the early recordings were done in a garage?
Oh, yeah,
Absolutely.
of well-known session bassist Joe Osborne, who for years lived in the Valley here. He moved to Nashville about 5 years, 6 years ago,
no,
at least.
8 years.
Is it 8 now?
Do you believe it?
And he had a garage studio
The 4-track.
with a 4-track and a couple Altecs and a Chamberlain Music Master and a little Wurlitzer piano and a drum set.
Yeah, because Herb Alpert seems to have an affinity with garages. He started recording
Yeah,
in a
he
garage,
Lonely
didn't
Bull
he?
was recorded
There's
in
a lot of things. Oh, I got to get this straight this time. There's a lot of things that run parallel with Herb
Yeah.
and ourselves, because he started in a garage, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we cut our first stuff in a garage. And there was, he was signed with RCA, and they had him signed as a vocalist. And he told them that he had a trumpet idea, and they didn't care. And we were signed with RCA as a jazz trio, and Richard says, well, my sister sings. They didn't care. And then it's ironic that we all ended up together. And then, what was the other thing that I always mix up about close to going to number one?
Oh, it's nothing that much.
6
it's,
weeks.
It's almost 2 years apart and the same amount of time to go
Yeah.
to one. You know.
Yeah.
His record
It's
went-
interesting coincidences,
Yeah, it's
though, aren't they?
strange.
Where did John Bettis turn up then? on the
John
scene?
turned up in choir. I was at
school.
Cal State University at Long Beach. They've changed the name of this school
They change it every
4
week.
times. I don't know what they call it now. It's something else again. But at the time it was Long Beach State.
Yeah.
Oh, it's
and,
much longer than that now.
I majored in music, if you're a music major, you have to, you have to do a recital each semester, and then you get what's called either closed or open recital. If the professors feel you're qualified enough, if you play well enough, they'll give you open recital, which means you play for your peers. Traumatic, very traumatic. And the other thing you have to do is either be in a choral outfit or band, and they had two of each. A good choir and a bad choir, and a good band and a bad band. That's so everybody could be in one or the other. So I auditioned for, playing piano, forget band. It didn't have piano and band, so I opted for the choir, and I certainly didn't want to be in the college chorus, as it was called, so I figured, well, I'll just audition for the a cappella choir. And I was accepted and worked with a man named Frank Pooler, who ended up writing the lyrics to Merry Christmas, Darling. And he had a big influence on me because of his the vocal school of thought that he worked with. Instead of every man for himself, it was blending with one another. And let me see, I was in it for 1 year. The next year, he said, I've got somebody I want you to meet that I've just put in the choir.
I want you to meet another lunatic.
Another lunatic, and he writes lyrics, and I thought maybe the two of you could put together like a little novelty piece for our concerts, and that's where I met John. And we hit it off immediately, and we wrote a couple things for the choir and ended up writing some tunes right at college, like Mr. Gooter and Saturday. And
yeah, because it's interesting, your music. You go from the deeply romantic, sentimental to some of the tracks, like Mr. Gooter you mentioned, and Goofus, with a strong tongue-in-cheek sense of humor. You obviously get a lot of laughs out of music as well.
Yeah, we're all over the place.
Yeah, we enjoy
it's from our upbringing, It's in our concert, we cover the gamut. We go from one end to the other, from piano concerto right to Destroying Close to You, like Spike Jones.
String of hits were sort of against the odds. Beautiful, sweet vocal sounds. And
it was absolutely
warm,
against the odds.
Sensuous music.
Yeah.
Against all this heavy rock stuff that was around at the time. It's very interesting, actually.
It just turned out that the radio programmers were looking for a change of pace. We didn't know that, of course. We just put out Close to You, and boom. It's a pleasant surprise.
Big boom.
With respect to you, Richard, I know you put a lot of work in behind-the-scenes writing and producing the LPs. I think of the Carpenters as your voice, Karen.
Oh, thank you.
What do you...
Close your ears.
Do you go through
I'm used to it.
any particular routine to keep your voice in trim? Do you still take voice lessons, that kind of thing?
No, I never took voice lessons. I just kind of opened my mouth.
No. Her routine is staying alive. That's all Karen needs to sing. No vocal leases, no...
I just kind of walk out. No, I've been very lucky that way, because I never knew you had to do anything, I guess. I had laryngitis once and we had to cancel 3 shows in
Yeah, that must be a
Utah.
nightmare.
I couldn't believe it, because I'd never had it any other time, huh?
No.
I couldn't believe it. I opened my mouth. I remember I was driving home, and, ooh, I hear laughter in the rain. Is that the right key? That's what I think that's it. And
Neil Sedaka
it was
song.
like 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and I went, and I went, hello? And that was it. It was gone. And I have no idea why it did that crummy, rotten thing it did to me.
Some of my favorite Carpenter songs are the Close to You, Superstar, all the gold LPs dotted around the room in here. Would you describe the two of yourselves? Are you romantic people? Are you a romantic, Richard Hart?
Incurable. Definitely romantic. Yeah, in a lot of areas,
Yeah.
Whether it's a story or movie, something I'm
anything.
watching,
Yeah, can music bring you to tears?
Oh,
Oh,
absolutely.
sure.
What sort of music?
Well, the things that it can be something like, say, the theme from the third movement of Rachmaninoff's Second Piano Concerto, which is better known as Full Moon and Empty Arms, but the original, that's the one that gets me. Something like that, or Borodin, Polyvetzian Dances, which became one section of it, Stranger in Paradise, but the original, with the oboe and the whole thing, and certain pop tunes, if it's a combination of just a great series of chord changes, a beautiful melody, and just the right lyrics,
And the
that
right
are,
voice.
Tugging at the heartstrings, the whole thing, it can definitely do it.
Yeah, you mentioned the right voice. Whose voices do you like listening to, Karen?
Go ahead.
Well, there's Manilow gets to me. There's one song that he released at the same time that we released I Need to Be in Love. And This one's for you wherever you are. That rips me to shreds. And we went to see him in concert. I said, Barry, that kills me. And he said, well, the one that gets to him the most, ironically, was my other favorite, which was I Need to Be in Love. And they were both out at the same time. But, yeah, I get almost to tears when I hear Arthur. That shakes me up. I really like it. So it depends on the mood you're in. I can, if I'm in a bad mood, and I've said this a million times, and if I'm upset about something, I'll put on our Christmas album. That'll bring me to tears. I mean, I came in one night, we were mixing the Christmas album, and Richard was mixing White Christmas, and I walked in and he was in tears. I said, what's the matter with you? I didn't do that bad a job. I mean, it's just things like that can shake you up, you know, because it's so gorgeous. And it upsets us that how do I put this? Music like that isn't accepted anymore, you know, in radio.
Well, it is.
Well, not the way we'd like it to be.
It certainly is in England. Your lives, you're internationally known megastars around the world, the two of you. It must make it for a very lonely life. Do you find yourself lonely and you've got to be protected from fans and pests like me who turn up from London? Do you find it a lonely existence as opposed to, say, the fun of the very early days?
Well, it's different than the early days, for sure. But it's a thing where you don't get to meet that many people. You really don't. Just because you're either locked in a recording studio or out on the road, you know, from town to town, one night to the next, and things like that.
What about the two of you together? I can remember my sister and I, we used to fight like cat and dog. I mean, is there a problem having family rows? I mean, do you ever argue over material you've got to record or the style of the arrangement? No?
Mm-mm.
Luckily, we think the same.
Our musical tastes are the same.
Yeah, and that's very helpful. It's also helpful in the production and recording because I can look at him and know what he's thinking. And he can tell from the tone of my voice what I'm thinking, or we can sing and play together a cappella and do something rubato. We can be in two separate rooms, and it can be right together because we just think alike.
It's a mental
We're both
telepathy.
Sick. No, luckily we've always gotten along very well, and we've always had the same interests: music, cars, and racing, and movies, and television, and like the same things.
Let's get back to the new album then, Richard, Made in America. How do you go about, you and John Bettis, when you're writing songs? You also wrote some with Burt Bacharach, who's got a song on the album too.
Right.
What was the concept behind that? What did you set out to do on the album?
Oh, just a collection of nice songs. Really, other than that, it's not really a concept album. It's not. In fact, we've really never done one that way.
Now and then.
Well, one side, really. You know.
Half of a concept
Half
album.
of a concept album. Let me see. How'd we set about? Well, it starts with listening to a lot of the material that's submitted, and that takes quite a while because it's hundreds and hundreds of songs, and then writing some of our own. The impetus of Because We Are in Love, of course, is Karen's wedding, and she said, would you write a song for the wedding? And we said, sure. You know, and you go, oh yeah, now we have to write this.
I kept saying, is it finished? No, not yet. And we cut it 3 days before the wedding. The week before the wedding was an absolute joke.
Well, I had parts of the melody. You know, I was visiting some friends here and there, and they'd have a piano. I'd come up with part of it. And part of it I wrote at home, another part at a friend's house. And then it was just a matter of taking the beginning, because there's several different parts. It's
like a musical.
It's got quite an extensive verse.
Yes.
And I had the first part. Well, I didn't have that much. That's where it stopped. And then I had Oh, we were talking about orchestrating a little bit earlier. I do the bulk of it, but we have used a very talented Englishman named Peter Knight on several
Peter,
things.
yes, I know, yeah.
Many
And this, to me, what I had in mind for the tune was to be right up his alley, so I do the arrangement and he'd do the orchestration. So he was coming over.
He and Babsy came over for the wedding.
Oh, yes. And
they looked quite fit.
So I figured it'd come to the time where most of the time I write the whole tune and then get John to put the lyric. This one wasn't happening that way, so I figured the time had come with the pieces I had that we should sit down and at least start writing the lyrics to what existed, and maybe that would motivate us and get us going.
So you and John, when you've got an album to write and music to write, you don't sit down in an office 9 o'clock on a Monday morning with a blank sheet of paper and write?
No.
Why not? So it's
To
inspiration.
me, it doesn't work that way. Once bits and pieces of a tune have come along that I'm satisfied with, that is enough there to warrant sitting down and then trying to get the rest of it finished. But to just sit down with nothing, I can't work that way. I mean, yesterday once more, I heard the melody to that driving in the car.
Really?
Top of the World, John had come along with us on a tour of one-nighters, and we leased a couple Learjets, and he got the idea for a song title, Top of the World from Looking Out the Window. And when I heard Top of the World, I heard the music. I mean, but as far as just sitting down, it's never worked that way. But there was enough of Because We Are in Love to get some lyrics, and sometimes if you hear some nice lyrics to the music
tune
if you already got,
suggested.
all of a sudden
Yeah.
the tune starts to continue. And that's what happened with the wedding song.
Well-
And we stayed up all night, and it worked. It almost worked. The next day, it was great. Peter came in, and it actually had a
Don't
few
get me
different
giggling
chord
about
changes,
him.
see, and it's a good thing it got done when it did, because we had to sit down, pick the key, and work over the concept of the whole thing.
The whole thing, pardon is moi. The wedding was on a Sunday. Tuesday and Wednesday we had a 60 or 80 piece orchestra booked 2 days in a row, and two separate sessions of 60 voice choirs. See, because we wanted to do the song at the wedding, and Richard wanted me to sing it live, and it's the first time I've ever said, "Are you out of your mind?" Because we couldn't quite picture that gorgeous gown and a microphone. It just didn't fit. So we decided to play the song. It worked out great. We were all had everything crossed, but it worked terrific. So we had Peter over here, who's an absolute dear. He calls him Governor. And I mean, everybody was so crazed by the time Tuesday came around. His hair was standing straight out of bed.
Well, we were trying to get several things. We got one track done with the orchestra that's going to be in the next album. We did Somebody's Been Lying that day, and another tune that's going to be in the next album, and the wedding song. You know, I mean, it was a busy, busy day, and then the choir was going to be in the next day.
Of course, I was doing my
I
tables.
didn't want Karen to hear the song until the track was done, and sort of a surprise, so she had no idea how it went. But to get back, what I was saying was, we worked to 6. The sun was out and the whole thing. It was like, great, it's finished.
The sun was
Big
shining
load
in
off
the
your
grass.
shoulders. And Peter came in the next day, and because of jet lag and all, the first night we picked him up and then just sat down
And put him down.
just kind of talked over what we were going to be doing, not to get down to any
We had to get his
real
tux
work,
fitted.
but we had to get him tux fitted and the whole thing, but I played him the tune, and I was still wiped out. He was wiped out, and
I was hysterical.
well, you hadn't even heard it by then.
I know,
We
that's
finished
it.
it, and we got a little Wurlitzer electric piano up into his suite and the whole thing, and I played it,
No,
and
he-
made a cassette so he could familiarize himself with it. And he said, "Lovely, it's just lovely." And I said, "Well, thank you," and the whole thing. And this will show you what happens. I mean, if you're working like all night long.
Do you know
sometimes.
Peter?
Yes, I know Peter. Yeah,
Isn't he
worked with him a lot in
Oh,
London.
he's
yeah.
The next day, the phone rings. You know, I've actually got a day. Some friends from the Midwest had come out for the wedding, and we were just having a good time. Phone rings, and he says, "Richard,
Governor.
I'm sure it's me. I'm sure it's me.
sure.
But I started to scratch this piece out to get busy on it, and it seems to have a 3-octave range." And I went, "Oh God." I mean, here we were that night, a couple nights before, up all night and the whole thing, and I said, "God," and I went in and I played. Actually, this time tried to sing it, because when you got 88
Impossible.
keys to work with, sometimes you just don't think. Something sounds nice and you're jumping all over the place, and it was 3 octaves, Oh,
Maria Callas
man,
sung this
which
thing.
mean
I
the
mean-
whole thing needed to be restructured.
Yeah.
And toot sweet, let me tell you.
This tune was a vocal feat, I'll tell you.
And it's rangy as it
Difficult.
is, but I mean, this was, we had to get Ema Sumac to do it. And
Well, she would have been breathing. Well, the other thing was that the range was like this. There was no room for a breath. He gave me one at the beginning. That was it. He said, "What do you need a
He
breath
wanted you to
for?"
remember your wedding, I think.
Oh my gosh! I tell you, that tune was difficult.
Husband Tom Burris, Karen, he's nothing to do with the music business, I gather, is he?
No,
Especially after meeting us.
right? He's still wondering why he's done this. No, he is in the real estate and building business, construction, and actually, it's quite ironic, but he'd never heard of us.
Really?
Now I can laugh about it. When the first night that we went out, I was introduced to Tom by Tony and Carol Scotti. I don't know if you know the Scotti brothers. They're a promotion team.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah.
Well, Carol Scotti is Mike Kerb's sister. Mike Kerb is our lieutenant governor.
Uh-huh.
Our lieutenant governor. And Richard and I have known Carol and Mike for years. And Carol, knew that I was, still looking, and she said, "I think I've got somebody," and my normal reaction was, "Yeah, sure, Carol." So we went out, and it was the first time I'd actually been attracted on the first date. Usually, you open the door and you go, "Oh," but and then you end up with instant, some deadly disease that you want. And it came out that he really didn't know who I was. Don't take this the way this is sounding, but I said to him on the first date, I hadn't known him for an hour, I said, "What, have you been under a rock for 10 years? And then from then on, it
Degenerated.
right, no.
Yeah.
No, he has a great sense of humor. It's a good thing.
Does he
but-
like listening to Carpenter's music now?
Yeah, but it's odd. He listens to classical and country, and now I've got him listening to everything, because I've embarrassed him to death that he has to. But it was ironic that him being involved with Mike and Carol and everybody that's so totally into the music business, and it's quite an interesting relationship.
I'm sure it sounds it. Yeah.
Oh, it's different.
Either of you have any regrets? One of my favourite tracks of yours is that one that starts "Long ago and I was so far away."
Oh, that's my favorite.
What's it say?
Superstar. Yeah.
Superstar. You sing that with such passion, as though you're kind of longing for something that maybe is lost and can't be returned. Is that true, Karen?
Well, certain tunes hit me, and they really get to me. That one, that's odd. Before you asked us if we ever disagreed on any tunes, for some reason that tune did not hit me in the beginning. It's the only one.
Really?
And he looked at me like I had three heads. He said, "You're out of your mind." When I heard his arrangement of it, I fell over. And now it's one of my favorites too. But that song still upsets me when I sing it. That and Rainy Days tears me to shreds. I still, from the first day that I sang that, it just gets to me. And I just go into a whole different world,
Yeah. Do you not get bored singing those songs
No.
when you're at concerts?
No. That and I Need to Be in Love. I practically have to snap myself out of it after I get done with it.
So when you're performing on stage and touring and doing a lot of travelling, the two of you must find it a very draining emotion. You're putting that degree of emotion into it, Karen. You must feel exhausted, as you were saying before.
It can get you after 7 years. Because we really didn't ever take a vacation. We'd be on the road 9 months, 8 or 9 months of the year. And then we'd come home and either be doing television or cutting another album. And it was literally our 7th year before we took a vacation and went to Hawaii. And when we got there, we didn't know what to do with ourselves. We were crazy. Did we?
I kind of fell into it in a big hurry.
Took you 5 days.
Oh, no. It took 1 day.
Do you suffer from nerves, either of you? If you've got a big concert, Las Vegas or New York,
Oh, that
Carnegie
kind
Hall
of
or
nerves,
something.
no.
No.
You don't?
No.
Craze type nerves, yes, but
But you're
it's
standing
like-
in the wings waiting to go on.
Nah,
it's
it's
an,
fun. I
an
like
excitement. But never, I was nervous the first time we performed with Burt Bacharach, and I forgot a lyric, and that shook me up. And then luckily that never happened again, but being nervous in front of an audience doesn't seem to occur. Actually, see, the thing that happened, I played the drums for 3 years, and we were well into our 3rd or 4th go record before I got out front, and at that point I was petrified because I didn't know what to do. My mouth still worked good, but my hands, I didn't know what to do with them, and I didn't know whether to walk or stand still or sit down or what the heck to do, because that's a different, before everything was working, and I was, it was a cinch. Just playing, sing, have a good time. But when I got out there, until I got comfortable with that, I just kind of planted myself and didn't really do anything. Now he has to tell me to stand still. I'm all over the place now.
What are your future plans, Richard, for the Carpenters? Are you planning, what I'm trying to ask, are you planning to come to England and do some concerts?
First visit to England coming up will be in October. And then concert-wise, definitely. This particular time, we're not going to be able to do any concerts, but...
we're coming on a promotional tour.
Yeah, but we'll be doing concerts, sure. It's just a matter of when. We don't know right now.
Yeah, it must be awfully difficult logistically. I suppose you get requests from Brazil, Australia, Canada.
Yeah.
It must be difficult to arrange where you've got to go. I presume you can say where you're going to be this time next year, can you?
It gets to that, but at the moment...
Once things get back...
Yeah, see, we're just kind of getting rolling again. We wanted to get the album settled and get that out, and then decide where we wanted to go. So we'll be going to Germany. I believe we're doing a special with
Julio
Iglesias.
Oh, yes.
And so we'll be in Paris, and I believe we're coming to London and Germany. And then I think we're going to Rio and Buenos Aires. So we'll be gone a little over a month.
It's a busy schedule, isn't it? Do you ever help Richard in the writing of the material, Karen? Or you just leave that to the boys?
Yeah. For some reason... I don't seem to have a gift to write. I guess my fate is just to sing, which keeps me busy enough.
And do you have your own team of musicians, Richard? I mean, do you carry, when you're on tour in Europe, say, you carry your own guys around with you? Or do you pick up a scratch band? When
no.
No,
it has to be the certain people and then very well rehearsed because they have to do some of the backup vocals.
The group's been together for 10 years, and we're just getting it back together now.
Mm-hmm.
But we decided to go to Europe, and it was too quick to put everything back together. So we're in the midst of doing that after we get home. I
see. And also on this new album, Made in America, was new to us here in Great Britain, you've got a lot of music by new writers, Richard.
Mm-hmm.
Did you go out and actively encourage new writers to submit material to you for the album? Or?
No, it just came in through the normal channels, the publishers, and several of the ones that caught my ear.
What sort of names? Because they're probably names we don't know yet.
Well, there's one called When It's Gone on there that I'm really in love with, and the guy's name is Randy Handley.
Randy Handley.
Randy Handley. And...
is that his real name?
Oh, God, I don't know.
It's hard to say.
I imagine it's his real name.
Randy.
Yeah, you couldn't really invent that, could
No,
Well, people used to say to us, where'd you get a dumb name like the Carpenters? And I said, well, it's our name. Oh.
But that piece, he's an up-and-coming writer, and there's Strength of a Woman, that's Phyllis Brown and Juanita Curiel. And...
I still can't say that.
So there are a couple,
Touch
and then
Me.
some... Yeah, well, that's Touch Me When We're Dancing. It was by a couple guys in a group out of Muscle Shoals named Bama.
Oh, yes. Yeah, that rings a bell.
And
yeah.
That's where that tune came from.
Your recent British single, you went way back, an old Marvelettes song.
Beechwood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why did you choose to release that in Britain?
They wanted to.
Yeah?
Either the powers that be at A&M in Britain or here, and we love that, always have.
The Carpenters together, tremendous success, the two of you. Has there ever been a temptation either for you, Richard, or you, Karen, to launch off onto a solo career? Does the thought appeal to either of you?
It comes and goes, but the real comfort is what we do together, because it just doesn't feel right. I mean, it comes up.
Because there must have been offers.
It's been offered, like you said, and sometimes it seems interesting, but the more, it doesn't make any sense, because the most comfortable is here with Richard, and because we both, luckily, are good in our own fields. They both kind of fit together.
It all blends, yeah.
Yeah, because Richard excels in what he does, and I do what I do. And it just seems to work. It's a perfect combination, so it doesn't really make any sense to go looking anywhere else.
And you feel the same as that, Richard?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, because I've been asked about producing other artists, but the Carpenters is really a full-time thing.
So you have no deep hidden ambition to conduct the New York Symphony or the Los Angeles Symphony?
It's something I'd enjoy to do maybe once or something. Not really, not as like leaving this and going to that.
I want to do a movie, a musical, and I would like Richard and John to write the score.
Yeah, because that's not happened so far, has it? The score for a
No,
musical.
I really want him to do that.
Have you got any properties you've got your eye on that you...
Not yet. It's kind of a difficult thing to find, especially nowadays, because we're both crazy for musicals, college musicals, stuff like that, and they just don't seem to be doing anything. I wished could have been in a Busby Berkeley flick. When you get a chance, every now and then, on a Saturday afternoon, you see all these terrific musicals, and that makes me cry. I think, why did I miss that? Everybody tap dancing on, and they just don't do things like that anymore, and it's a shame. When you look at the talent that was back then, and my God, you think, oh, it's amazing.
There's still a lot of it about now, you see. I mean, the world changes anyway. It may all come back again. It all goes
I
in
hope
circles,
it does,
doesn't
and
it?
I wouldn't mind helping it.
Richard and Karen Carpenter, it's been a great pleasure and an honour to meet you both, and thanks very much for talking to us.
Thank you.
Ray.
And that's where we must leave the Carpenters and Ray Moore. The programme was produced by Dennis O'Keefe. Well, coming up next on Radio 2, we've 90 minutes of music and lively entertainment in the company of Pete Murray. At 1 o'clock, we have the main lunchtime bulletin, and then you're invited to laugh along with Les Dawson and Roy Castle. How could you possibly go away?